A member of the Nocode Academy reached out and asked, can we use a build chip to serve up a fake API? Well, we can do that really easily with inside build chip. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a simple build chip workflow that's going to serve up some CSV data. It's going to convert it into a JSON object and it's going to return it back. So we can then use that with inside our Flutterflow application. Now, why would you do this? Well, if you are prototyping for a client or you are looking to kind of test some functionality with inside your Flutterflow application, instead of kind of getting low level and producing code that's going to kind of do this yourself, you can do that very simply with inside BuildShip. So let's now head over to BuildShip, let's create that endpoint, and then we can move back to Flutterflow and we can then hook onto that data. Okay, so in BuildShip then let's create a brand new workflow, hit plus, let's give our workflow a name, generate fake API response, hit create. Now we're going to set up our first trigger, hit add trigger. Now this is going to be a REST API call. We're going to make a GET request in from our Flutterflow application. So just choose REST API call, add the trigger. Now I'm just going to give this then a name. I'm going to call it result. That's like that. And of course it's going to be a GET request. So hit the plus here. Now this is where we're going to use the power of BuildShip's AI capabilities to generate a node for us, because BuildShip at the time of recording doesn't have a node that converts CSV data into a JSON object. So hit generate here. This is where we now need to give BuildShip some simple instructions. So I'm going to say given a CSV text like that. Now I want to convert to a JSON object just like that and return back the JSON object. Now what we need to do is we need to give it some additional context, because when this function will be generated, what it will obviously probably do is generate integers will be strings in our result. Now we don't want that. We want to kind of make this as close as we can to an API endpoint and what it would return for us. So we need to put some additional context information in here. So I'm going to type in here, make sure there is correct handling of integers in the JSON object, just like that. Now if I hit generate with AI, now this is going to take just a moment here to generate this code for us, which is just going to be an independent node that will then hopefully allow us to paste in some CSV data into then the field that it provides, and then the result set hopefully will then be a JSON object which we can then successfully return back as a result from this particular workflow. Okay, so that's all now set for us. Let's now quickly add in the return node here, and we can just, in this particular menu that pops up here, you've got this return here, just select that. Now the value, we just need to hit the pen, and we just need to choose the variables, and we're just going to choose this CSV to JSON converter, just like that. Now this is where we now need to paste in the CSV text. So I'm just going to grab some CSV data here and paste that in here. Okay, so I've just pasted some CSV data in here. You can see here that the first line in my CSV does have the headers. Now this is going to be really important, because each one of these entries in the list is going to then be mapped to these particular kind of values here at the top. And that's what we want our JSON object to represent. Now that's in place there. We can simply now hit the test workflow, and then you'll see hopefully successfully that we'll see all of our CSV data that will be mapped to JSON objects. So there it is. You can see here, this is a list because we have an array, and here is our first entry with inside that array. You can see here that my ID is correctly representative with a integer value here. Of course, if I didn't put that additional context information in, then there would have been probably double quotes there, sort of at the start and the end of that particular integer value. So everything is all nicely set up. We can now head over to Flutterflow once we've actually deployed this workflow, and then of course we can then test that out inside our application. So what you would then do in BuildShip now, of course, is hit the ship option, and that will then work its magic, and then it will provide us then back that endpoint, which we can then copy. Here it is, and we can now take that into Flutterflow, and we can then just quickly test that with inside our application. Okay, so here we are then in Flutterflow. As you can see here, I've got this very simple application that would like to display the CSV data that we've got kind of in this results list view. So how would we get that working? Well, the first thing that we need to do is create a data type with inside Flutterflow that we can then use as to map the values that come back from our endpoint to that data type, which we can then display within a list with inside our Flutterflow application. So how do we do that? Well, let's now firstly create a data type. So just hit the data types option, hit the plus at the top here. Now I'm just going to give this one a name of person like that, because it's a person. That is my CSV data, but of course it could be different with your different CSV data. Hit add field. Now this is where it's really important, because the header of your CSV will contain something like what we've got here as an ID. So I'm just going to choose this as an integer, hit create. The next one I'm going to create then is the name. This is just a string of the CSV value. So hit create here, add another field. I've got one called age, which again is an integer, hit create, and then add one final one. For me is just the profile underscore URL. Now that data type is slightly different. That is actually a HTTP kind of URL. So it's going to be an image path, and just hit create. Okay, now with our data type in place, when we make that API call, we're going to want to store all of those values into a page state variable, because that page state variable is then going to be kind of bound to our list view. So with the home page selected, move over to the right here to state management, add the field here. Now I'm just going to call this one persons like that. Now the type is going to be of our data type. Now if I choose is list here, because we have a list that's going to come back, and the type, of course, the only one that we have available is called person. So just choose person and hit confirm. Now that is all set up for us. Now what we now need to do is now set up that API call into BuildChip. So let's move over to then this little option here called API calls. Just select that. Okay, so let's move up to the add option here, and we're going to create a brand new API call. Just select that. Let's give our API a name. So I'm just going to call this one person result like that. Now the get is fine. Just paste then the BuildChip API endpoint in there. Now what we can now do is we can now hit add call, but what we can do is we can now test this. So we just go to test API call, and you can see hopefully you should successfully see your CSV data get returned. Now what we need to do now is we need to now choose this option here for the response type, because we now created that data type. We want to take the result here, and we want to map all of these values, use the power of Flutterflow to map all of these to our data type. So just choose parse as data type, choose the data type option, choose person, and of course it's going to be a list. That's going to strictly then create this type for us, which means then that will then work well with our page state variable that we have just created. So once that is done, we can just hit save down here, and that is our API call all set up. Okay, so in my particular example, I want to make that API call on page load. So with the home page selected, move over to the action flow editor here. I'm going to add a brand new action here. Now I'm just going to do a search here for API, and here's my API call. Choose then the group or call name. It's going to be my person result. It's the only one that I've got created, and very conveniently we've got this conditional action that's been created by Flutterflow. So we know that if we get a status 200 here, we get a success back from BuildChip. We're going to head in this particular direction, and this is the direction where we now need to update our page state variable. So hit plus, go to add action, and we can just type in the word state here, choose update page state here, choose add fields. Now here is our persons list. This is the kind of the page state variable we want to push the result into. So choose the select update type. We want to set the value of it. So we're going to replace the contents of it. Choose the value to set. Now, of course, this is going to come from our action output. So this is the action output here, which has been created by this one here. We can choose the API result here, choose the API response, choose as a data type, and we just need to hit confirm. We are good to go there. If I just hit close. Okay, so back within then the widget tree of Flutterflow, you can see here I've got this results, a list view here. Now that is got dynamic children all set up. That's my person. That's each individual person from my CSV row here. And of course the value of that is mapped onto my page state variable, which is I've just called persons, if you recall. Now each of these then rows and each of these widgets here are then mapped onto a field within inside that particular data type of the persons. Of course here, for example, my circle image is got the path mapped up to my person item to then the profile URL. And of course, these are just the same as well. Now, when I fire this up, let's see if that API call is then returned. There it is. Got some rows that's come back. This is just CSV data, of course, and that's how it kind of started. And now I've got it nicely displayed within inside my Flutterflow application. So this is a quick and easy technique to use the power of BuildChip to provide you like a mock or like a test API that you can use within inside your Flutterflow application. If you're kind of demonstrating something to clients or anything like that, then this is a great way to get up and running really fast without using a real world database or API endpoint. Please come and join the Digital Pros private no-code academy. The link is in the description.